How much have you seen transact over the last 40 years on selling a plane?
I've probably, rough guess, I've probably done $6 to $7 billion worth of sales.
Wow.
I've done business with a number of musicians, celebrities, billionaires.
What's it like negotiating with billionaires?
Well, you'd be surprised.
Steve Varsano, the founder of the jet business, the world's first private jet showroom, the man who redefined how the world buys private jets.
Remember your first jet transaction?
Yeah, boy, I did. I was selling to a Venezuelan billionaire, and they sent their two representatives out of Miami to go to the closing. I remember exactly, it was $3.1 million. And these two Venezuelan guys said, "What about our fee?" And I said, "You're mistaken, this deal's done." And he sits there and he pulls out a gun, literally from his pocket, and points it at me. Whoa, let me tell you.
What's the most expensive plane you've ever sold?
$110 million.
And when someone does $110 million, what does that person usually do for a living?
Well, that one was a Middle East royal family. They carried a lot of people, and it was the head of state.
What about President Trump?
Yeah, I've met him a lot of times. I negotiate with him on one transaction.
He's a shrewd negotiator?
Yeah,
I'm curious, in your perspective, what keeps you in the business after all these years for you personally?
Well, the adrenaline of meeting these kind of people and learning from them. I'm always asking, trying to expand my knowledge base. If you're not learning, you're going backwards.
What are the things that you see that a lot of these guys have in common?
They finish what they start. And this is the biggest problem with most people. People today have ADD. I mean, people don't know how to focus, and they change their mind 50 times a day.
What advice would you give to people out there trying to go for more and make their dreams a reality?
So the first thing...
Thanks so much for being on the podcast today, Steve.
Pleasure, Omar. Nice to see you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us here in your home. I know you're a busy man flying all over the world, but glad we could make some time.
No, it worked out well. I mean, I'm just passing through here for the day, and I'm glad we were able to squeeze this in.
Absolutely, man. So let's get right into it. A lot of people have seen you blow up on social media, right? Like you've gotten millions of views super fast. I mean, if anything, everybody knows the jet business. They think about you, one of the best dressed guys on social. But before you came the jet broker to the stars, so to speak, take me back. Where did you grow up and how did you first fall in love with aviation? I think you were, 13, 14 years old?
Yeah, I was born in New York, in the Bronx, brought up in New Jersey. And I was 14 years old, and one of my friend's older brother was going up for a flying lesson, asked me if I wanted to go for a ride. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I'd never been in a little airplane. Well, I think probably hardly ever even been in a big airplane, for a commercial plane. But I went up for a ride, and it just immediately just clicked in me. This is amazing. I just fell in love with the whole idea of being up in the air, flying, and think that I could learn how to fly.
Was it a single-engine Cessna, or?
It was actually, on that day, it was in a single-engine four-seater Cessna 172. But I started learning in what they call a Grumman American Tiger. It's a tiny little airplane that actually had a canopy that pulled back.
Yeah.
And it was at Teterboro Airport outside of New York City, which it's sort of like learning how to drive the first time in a car in a Formula One on a racetrack. It was at Teterboro Airport, the busiest airport in the United States.
And at that time, did you know, like in that moment, you wanted to have a career, or just became like a passion? You wanted to get your license, or like, was it at that moment that you were like, oh, I got to give my life to this? Because a lot of people in aviation or pilots will say, oh, it was my dream from childhood.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, once that happened, I just started really researching it. And, unfortunately, in those days, you didn't have internet. And I started reading up anything I could about flying and aviation, and I wanted to be an airline pilot. That was sort of like the ultimate. And actually, as in the next year or two, I actually thought I wanted to be an astronaut. And I applied to go to the Air Force Academy, but I got turned down, so that didn't happen.
What is it about being in the air that did it for you?
I just like the freedom of it, and to know that I was in control of this. At the time, I thought it was this amazing machine. Of course, it was a simple little thing, but for me, it was something out of the ordinary. I was brought up with, a single mom with two brothers and a sister. And so she was working two jobs her whole life. I've been working since I'm 7 years old, sweeping floors in a beauty salon and bussing tables. Mm-hmm. So to think that I can actually be in an airplane and fly, it was something I never imagined that I can accomplish.
Wow. And we'll get into more of the story of how you got to where you're at today, but can you give the audience context who may not know exactly who you are, the scale at which you operate, the clientele you serve? High level, what do you do with the jet business?
So we represent buyers and sellers buying corporate jets, and they go anywhere from $5 million to $125 million, and they could be 20 years old or they could be brand new. And they're corporate jets, because I say corporate jets because some people call them private jets, but there are no jets that are owned by individuals from a liability standpoint and just practicality wise. So our customers are really the biggest companies in the world, or they're the entrepreneurial led companies that there is one person who really built it and sort of runs it. And it looks like it's his plane, but it's really the company's plane. And the interesting fact is that 70% of most passengers on these corporate jets are middle management. So you're really dealing with the biggest companies in the world. And we have sold airplanes to, big companies, to individuals, to under the companies, sports stars, celebrities, government officials. And over the last 40 years since I started, the average age of the person at the head of a company has really dropped from about 68 to about 43.
Wow.
So really, you see the many more younger people running companies or creating wealth for the company or themselves and getting into the corporate aircraft.
And you sold to people like Tony Robbins and some of the biggest names in the space. When did you first get into like selling it? Do you remember your first jet transaction?
Oh, yeah, boy, I did. I was 24 years old, 23 and a half, whatever. And it was I was selling to a Venezuelan billionaire. And they sent their 2 representatives out of Miami to go to the closing. So we had the whole deal negotiated. I remember exactly, it was $3.1 million, but this is, 45 years ago. So 3.1 million is, so today, like
30 million or something.
40, 50, whatever.
Yeah.
And
were you nervous at that age, like that amount of money, your first deal?
Oh my God. I mean, first of all, I never flew on a private jet before. So
you sold it without ever having flown?
Yes. So we showed it to him, but I didn't fly on it. And so I was 8 months working at the company for free, by the way. That's how I got myself in to get the job. And I was waiting tables at night to pay my rent. But this is the first airplane I sold, and we had to go to North Carolina to sign and close because there's certain states in America where you have to close for tax purposes, so you don't get stuck with a tax. And so we signed in North Carolina. They were transferring the funds. We were going to Miami. And once we got to Miami, we were confirming all the funds were there, the deal closed, and then they were taking the plane to Venezuela, and I was going back to Washington, D.C., where I was living and working. And we're halfway to Miami, and I had my most nicest polyester suit on at the time, and I was feeling like James Bond. I mean, I'm sitting there with a scotch. I'm at 40,000 feet in a $3 million jet. This was like, wow. Yeah. And we're halfway through the flight, and these 2 Venezuelan guys are sitting closer than you and I are. It's a small jet.
Yeah.
And they said, Steve, we need to talk to you. I went, well, about what? He said, well, about our fee. What do you mean your fee? Yeah, we want to get a paid commission. What are you talking about? You're representing the buyer. Anyway, back and forth a few times. And I said, you're mistaken. This deal's done. You sent the money. It's closed. Well, we'll figure it out when we get to Venezuela. We'll get it all settled out. I said, no, you guys, I'm not going to Venezuela. I'm getting out of Miami. I'm going home. This deal's done. And he sits there and he pulls out a gun, literally from his pocket, and points it at me. And I'm telling you, about 2 feet from my face. I said, no, Steve, you're mistaken. You're coming to Venezuela with us. And if we don't get our money, you will never be going home. Whoa, let me tell you.
Holy.
I went from being James Bond to like, this little mouse stuck in the room. And I was shaking. I'm like, what the hell is this? Anyway, thank goodness.
You were alone on that flight?
Yeah, it was me and these 2 guys.
That's it. Wow.
And the pilots. And so we land, and, in those days, you don't have no cell phones.
Right.
So we went into what they call fixed base operator. This is like the private terminal for corporate jets. So we walked in there because he said, let's go and call your boss and get this money sent. So he literally has his hand in his pocket with the gun. We walk into this terminal, and just to let you set the scene, this was around 1980, early 1980s. Okay. 1981 or something too. This was just when Scarface movie came out. Okay. And I am in Miami, and I'm just thinking of this movie. This guy's going to cut me up in little pieces, shoot
me on the helicopter. Yeah.
I thought I was done.
Yeah.
And we go into the terminal, and I put my 10 cents into the telephone to call my boss. And the woman behind the counter, which was maybe 20 feet away, said, excuse me, sir, I need your credit card for the fuel for the plane. Mm-hmm. He turned around to go give her the credit card, man. I dropped the phone. I ran out the other door. There was a taxi on the other side. I said, quick, I got a flight on the other side of the airport. Go, go, go. And the guy took off, and I'm like ducking behind the back seat. And the guy comes running out. I thought he was going to start shooting. I mean, it was
a movie.
It was a movie.
Yeah.
And so I go to the other side of the airport. You know, in Miami airport, they have these gigantic concrete columns, and I'm hiding, literally trying to, these guys are coming after me. They're going to kill me. And in those days, you didn't have metal detectors and none of this stuff. So I went to find my plane. My jacket and my briefcase was on the plane. I didn't care. I didn't need a passport. So I called my office. I said, hey, did you get the money? Is the deal done? Yeah, everything's done. Congratulations. I was like, okay, bye. And I hang up and I go find the plane. I'm supposed to fly back to Washington. And I'm hiding behind this pole, waiting for the board. And I get on the plane. I'm looking at the front door. These guys are going to come after me.
Yeah.
And they close the door. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And I got away. And
wow.
But literally, though, for the next month, every time I got in my car and turned the key, I was like, is this the last time?
Yeah.
And I was looking over my shoulder for a month. I'm worrying these guys are coming after me. But never heard from them again. And that was my first airplane set. Why I stayed in the business, I have no idea. Maybe the excitement or the adrenaline. But anyway, that was my first deal.
Wow. Yeah, because you've been in the business like 40 years now.
Yeah, a little more.
Wow. And so how did you, let's kind of backtrack a little bit. So you fall in love with aviation as a kid. You're up in the air. You're like, man, I love this. I want to be a pilot one day. How do you go from that at 14 to 10 years later at 24 selling? I'm sure there was like 10 years of like trying stuff, trying to figure out what you want to do with your life. Walk us through what happened there, and then we'll get into the business.
So there's an aviation university, which is called Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. It's out of Daytona Beach and Prescott, Arizona. And I went to this university, and this university is basically, they call it the Harvard of aviation. So it's really anybody who wants anything to do in aviation, space, engineering, aircraft management, piloting, you can go to this university, and they have people from all over the world, and it's a regular 4-year school. So while I was in there, and I started meeting all these people that wanted to do different things in aviation, and it just got my brain opened up more. And then I have a little bit of an entrepreneurial sort of lean in my brain. And I said, you know what? I want to figure out how I sit in the back seat of that corporate jet, not in the front seat, because I thought maybe after a while, as much as I wanted to fly them, I would get tired of it after a few years. So I wanted to sort of figure out maybe I could do both. I could learn how to fly and I can get into business. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what I was going to do, but that's basically my approach during school. It changed my mindset. And I'm pretty lucky that I had an aviation exposure when I was young, because this is the biggest problem with kids today in universities. They really aren't exposed to enough things to really have fallen in love with something that and it's one of those things where you just don't know until you're exposed to it.
Right.
Yeah. And sort of like if you meet a girl, I mean, you could describe what you want as much as you want, but until you actually meet them, if the chemistry clicks, it just clicks.
Yeah.
And
then you end up moving to England. And then you end up moving to London.
That's exactly what happened. All because of a woman. It's a whole nother story.
We'll get into that. Yeah.
So it just, while I was in school, it just sort of evolved. And actually, I graduated that university today, which I'm actually on the board of trustees now of the university.
That's awesome.
And today they have a 99.5% placement rate to their students. But at the time, it wasn't so good. And I graduated, and I didn't have a job. And I went to the career placement office for two reasons. One, because I was looking for a job, and second, because the secretary that worked there at the time was really good looking. And so I figured, well, if I'm going to be hanging around, and this was during Christmas time because I graduated in December. And I went to go talk to her, and she says, there's this job opened up in Washington, D.C. as a aviation lobbyist. Really? What is it? And she showed me the description. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I don't really have the qualifications, but I could do this,
Yeah.
And she said, well, they're going to interview after the holidays, Christmas, New Year. Next month they're going to start interviewing. She want to call up and get an appointment. I said, no, thank you. I took this paper. I left her office. I went to my house. I got one suit. I got in my car, and I drove from Daytona Beach to Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And I went in the next morning to the guy's office and said, is he here? He's not there. He's coming in later. I said, I'm going to wait. He's not going to be here all day. I said, I'm going to stay here until he comes. And when he came in, I got him to talk to me. I said, why wait?
Right. Be proactive. Yeah.
He gave me the job.
Wow.
So that was like my first real job. I mean, I did some internships while I was in school. They called it cooperative education in those days, as an airport manager and with another lobbying group in Washington representing airport managers. But this was my first real opportunity working for a lobbying group in DC. It was an amazing opportunity.
Hey guys, we'll get back to the video in a sec. But first, quick question for you business owners watching. Are you really using AI to grow your business profitably? Or are you leaving money on the table? Well, thanks to today's sponsor, High Level, you can now put AI to work for you and your business 24/7. High Level is the #1 all-in-one marketing and CRM platform that replaces dozens of those scattered apps with one powerful, easy-to-use dashboard. It's like having your own AI assistant running your business around the clock 24/7, writing your emails and texts, following up with leads instantly, booking appointments, building funnels on websites, managing your calendar, and even collecting reviews to grow your reputation and maximize your profits. Thousands of entrepreneurs and agencies are already scaling faster with it, including me and our business. And here's the best part. You can get started today with an exclusive 30-day high-level trial completely free if you click the link in the description below. So don't wait. Start your free trial and let's start growing your business today. Thanks to High Level for sponsoring this video. And now let's get back to the show. I love that you talk about that because, at this stage, we've interviewed so many successful people who built their businesses, and all of them have versions of that story where like it was the catalyst, where they did the thing above and beyond what the rest of the people did. What was the urgency at that moment for you? Because you could have waited till after the holidays, but something in you was like determined, like, no, I'm going to get in my car, I'm going to drive. There's no guarantee, but I'm going to be assertive. I'm going to shake hands. I'm going to make an impression. What was driving that?
Well, it was coming up to Christmas. I graduated. I had no job. I felt, I don't say calling a loser, but like, you better get your goddamn act together, man. Mm-hmm. I mean,
how old were you at that time?
I was 21.
Gotcha. So early 20s, and you came from humble beginnings, so you were looking at something big. Yeah.
And I had a lot of student loan debt. I had a lot of debt. I took out a lot of student loans to go through school, and so I just, listen, it's like the old Nike ad, just do it. Mm-hmm. And like our mutual respected mentor, friend Tony Robbins. I mean, his whole thing is you got to step over that imaginary line that people have to be afraid. You can't be afraid of trying something. If you don't try, you're not going to win, and you're going to fail sometimes. But when you fail, every time you fail, you're going to sort of learn something from it, and eventually you're going to get a yes. Yeah. But I gotta start. You have to try. You have to just move forward. And at the time, I'm going to go. I just got in the car and just did it.
I love that. And it's funny you say that about Tony Robbins, because we've both done the Firewalk and Tony's UPW event, where the Firewalk is actually a metaphor for stepping on the fear and getting to the other side and knowing that you'll be all right. Like, you could see the path on fire, but one step at a time, you'll get to the end. Everything will be fine. Fear is like mostly illusion in our mind. So I love that you mentioned that. Yeah.
You're right. Fear is an illusion. And also, worried about how you're going to be judged. The fear of judgment by people is another terrible, terrible thing.
Yeah, I think I've heard something recently that says that more people are afraid of the judgment of failure than the actual failure itself. Yeah. Oh, if I try the company and it fails, I'm going to look like a loser in front of everybody, more than they're actually feared of it not working,
Yeah, and, with social media today, there's so many people who put themselves out there and it's not them. and everybody thinks, wow, look how successful, or how,
Yeah. And I'm sure you've seen it too in your business. People come in and posture all the time and act a big talk and talk a big talk, and then they disappear when the invoice shows up.
Yeah, it's a shame, really. It really is a shame. And, because really, if you have to fake you're somebody else, obviously you don't like who you are. So the best thing to do, change your real self. Don't change your image on social media. And it's much harder, obviously, to do that. But, you do have to look at yourself in the mirror every day. And, you should have some respect for yourself before anybody else.
100%. So going back, you go to the office, you make an introduction, you shake his hand, you wait at the office till he gets there, and he gives you the job. Once he gives you the job as an aviation lobbyist, and you had no experience in it.
I said to myself, I walked out of the door. It's one of those things, be careful what you ask for.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have marketing experience, you have statistics experience, aviation. I worked for 8 weeks at the American Association of Airport Executives as an intern in the summer, the previous summer. And I was like, yeah, I know. I've been in Washington. I know all these people.
Yeah.
Listen, it's one of those things that
commit first, figure out the rest later.
Yeah. On the job training. I just figured out who can they really get who has this experience if they're posting this job in a university. So I figured, if anything, I'm going to try. You know, I mean, and a lot has to do with people, relationships, because in Washington, you deal with legislative aides and congressmen and senators,
Right.
how you talk to them and make them feel. At the time, I had no idea what that meant, but that's had a lot to do with, you know, getting information or getting bills or laws held back or changed or altered or whatever. And so it's something I learned on the job, but it's really all about how you deal with people.
And then you build those skill sets, which obviously later would help you a ton in the jet business. But at that time, you didn't know that you were going to end up having a jet business. You're just a kid following his passion for aviation and wherever it leads, which there's also a great lesson in that you just pursued the passion, the interest, and the next steps sort of revealed themselves. You didn't have this whole master plan. So what happens next? You get into the aviation lobby, and then how does that evolve to later selling?
You're right. I didn't have this goal where I wanted it to go. It just sort of kept happening. And that's really the worst thing I could tell anybody, because you really should have a target. You should have a plan. You should have an objective where you want to be. I tell people now, it's easy to say it now, you know, if you were going to
write Beverly Hills and Mulholland Drive.
But, you know, I say, listen, write your CV, your resume 10 years from now. I want right now, write down what your resume says 10 years from now. What do you really, if you had a blank piece of paper, what do you want to say 10 years from now? And then after you write it down, okay, now you got at least the target. As Peter Diamandis, a friend of mine, always says, you know, you're going to miss your target every single time if you don't set one, right? So the thing is if you write it down, then you figure out, okay, now how do I reverse engineer? How do I get there? And I've told people a number of times, let's say if somebody wants to be an investment banker and they want to go work for, you know, Morgan Stanley or JP Morgan or something like that, and they're never going to get in there, they think. Well, what you should do is go get a job in the mailroom. Go get a job as a janitor. Don't tell me it's below you. Just get in the company, get in the door.
Get in the room. Yeah.
Get in the room. And then you're going to start figuring out who's who. First of all, the image of that company might not be what you thought it was once you're in there.
True.
But once you're in there, you're going to know who is the person that you really would like to work for. And then, you know, you just go into his office. You're working at that company. Say, you know, I'm in the mailroom, or I'm working as a janitor, or I'm an assistant here, but I only did that to get in the door. And those people will be like, really? Yes, here's my resume. This is what I really want to do.
Right.
Is there anything I could do as a junior level assistant? You know what? I'll even do it for free. I want to work in your department. Okay. I want to do it. You know, these kind of people really want to see, you know, you got the passionate few here. They want to see your passion. Mm-hmm. They want to see really how much you want to you're so into it. You're not doing it because you want to be rich. You're not doing it because you want to be in New York. You're not doing it because you want it because this is something I would dream about doing. And if people see that, they will enjoy having you, you know, get on the boat with them.
Mm-hmm. Because that's probably what got them there. So they recognize it when others have it.
They want to see hunger.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing we were talking about when hiring a team or building a team is like, yeah, skill and acumen is important, but you really want is someone who's bought into the same vision, frequency, energy of desire of what you're doing. That's really interesting. So then at that point, do you kind of like say to yourself, like, okay, what next? Or do you start seeing a career for yourself? Or like, what's going on in your mind at that time as to like, did you like it? Was the job not what you thought it was?
So it was a fantastic ego. For my ego, it was a great job, a great job. But it paid shit. I mean, I was getting paid $13,000 a year. Uh-huh. Okay. I just came out of university. I had, oh my God, $100,000 worth of debt. And I was school. And at nighttime, my roommate owned the hottest nightclub in DC at the time. And as part of when I was a lobbyist for this group, we represented all the airplane manufacturers. And instead of a company car, crazy as it sounds, we had a company plane, a small little 4-seater, turbocharged, retractable gear airplane. And they told us, listen, as long as you pay for the fuel, you can go use that airplane anytime you want.
Wow.
Sounds great. But on $13,000 a year, I didn't have enough money to buy fuel for this airplane.
Yeah.
But my roommate who owned this nightclub had lots of money. So I said, listen, I'll make you a deal. I fly, you buy. And I worked there at night in his nightclub.
Yeah.
And I won't talk about my social scene with him, with my plane and his Mercedes. We had a great time with it. But
any stories you could share from that, even Tad?
later on.
All right, yeah.
I can use vodka first.
Yeah.
And so at nighttime in this nightclub, in this restaurant, this guy would come in all the time, and he had a jet on his tie pin when people used to wear ties and tie pins. Why do you have a tie pin with a jet on? He says, I sell planes. You sell planes? What do you mean you sell planes? Like pre-owned, used one? Yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool. And he was a regular customer, and he used to come in every few weeks and pull me out a commission check. This is before, you had checks. And he go, look at this, Steven. It's 10 grand, 5 grand, 20 grand. And this is 40 years ago, right? I'm like, Jesus, what the hell do you work, man? I want to come and get a job there. Introduce me to your boss.
Yeah.
No, we're not hiring anybody. And you're working in a restaurant, man. No, you don't understand what I do in the daytime. Please, just introduce me to your boss. So finally, I got him to introduce me to the guy. I went, I put my best, suit on again, and tuxedo, whatever it was a polyester garbage. But I walked into the door, and I walk in this place, and people were in like shorts and T-shirts and flip-flops and beards. I'm like, I went back out. I looked in the door. I'm like, maybe I went in the wrong place. He said, what's the matter? I said, I'm sorry. I thought you sold jets here. Yeah, we do. But with all due respect, how you're dressed, well, we don't see these people face to face. We do it all on telephone. Why, are you selling a jet on the telephone? Yeah. Anyway, I got talking to him for 2 hours. And he said, listen, you really don't have any experience. You never sold anything before. I said, well, actually, I sold you. You're sitting here listening to me for 2 hours, so you're obviously semi-interested. Yeah. I'll tell you what. Let me work here for free. You don't have to pay me anything. And until I sell a plane. How can you say no? In those days, that was something crazy to say. Right. I got a job as a waiter at nighttime in a restaurant to pay my rent. And that's how I started. I started working, and then after 9 months, I sold my first plane, which was that Venezuelan plane.
And what's the nature of the business, just high level for somebody like selling a plane, making a commission? Because, planes can range, now that you said, 5 million to 125, 50 million. But back in those days to now, how did, was the business the same? Did it evolve? What's the nature of how to make money, commission money on selling a plane?
So in those days, there was no cell phones. There was no emails. There was no internet. Okay. I don't even think they had faxes in those days. They had telex machines. They didn't even know what a telex machine. It's like almost one step above Morse code. And you had this ticker tape that would go in, you put the specifications in, and you'd have to go get film, put it in your camera, go to the airport, take pictures of the plane, go get it developed. Hopefully you're going to get one photo that worked, Then you had to put it in the mail. You didn't even have Federal Express in those days. And it was a long process.
Archaic, yeah.
And at the time, there was literally a newspaper. It still exists today, I think. It's called the Trade a Plane, Trade-A-Plane. And it was a newspaper, classified ads of airplanes. You can get agricultural airplanes, single-engine airplanes. At those times, Lear jets, really the big shot airplanes. So you'd advertise a little 2 or 3 lines in this classified ad with the phone number of the company, and that's it. And this newspaper would go out every 2 weeks to people. And you would go get like real estate, you go and try to get a listing. So you convince somebody to allow you to sell the plane, and you get an exclusive mandate to represent them to sell it. Now you're advertising the airplane, or if, let's say, if the guy's selling a Learjet, you want to find the turboprop or one airplane below that, and you call all those owners to see if they're going to move up to a Learjet. And today there's Gulfstream, there's Bombardier, there's Falcon, there's Embraer, Boeing, Airbus, Cessna. And so if you want to call it guerrilla, marketing, you start from the bottom, you call people and try to see who might be interested to move up. Or you advertise. People look at these certain newspaper. Now it's on the internet or something, and if they're interested, they'll call you, and you have the listing. You control the airplane. And now you start negotiating against other airplanes that are for sale, and you not just price. It's the hours on the airplane, the ownership history, the maintenance history, how the layout is, what condition it's in, and all those things measured and the year to other airplanes, and see if it's priced correctly. And then you try to convince them to make an offer. And once you get an offer accepted, you got to get them to send the deposit, which goes into an escrow agent, refundable until you negotiate a purchase agreement. And then when you get the purchase agreement, the airplane goes into a pre-purchase inspection where they tear the airplane apart. And they take all the logbooks from back to birth to make sure everything is exactly in place. And once all that's done, you get to a closing. So if all of the stars are perfectly aligned, from the day somebody says, I want to buy that specific airplane, it's about a 2-month process. But the stars are never aligned and things always go wrong. So it could take 3, 4, 6 months to get a deal done from the point that they decide they're going to buy the airplane. Not, I'm thinking about buying, which one should I buy? That could take a day, a month, a year. You don't ever know.
And today it's similar, right? The same process. It's just there's more technology helping that process.
Yeah. And obviously everything moves faster. You take pictures, you got digital, send them my email, specifications that all the records are, on a computerized system. So it moves faster, but that 2-month period is usually the minimum to get a deal done.
What's the most expensive plane you've ever sold?
$110 million.
And was that like a straight wire?
Yeah. It was a 2-step process. We actually bought the airplane for $58 million, and then it was another $40 million of Boeing business jet, which is a 737. So we bought it brand new from the factory, and it comes what they call green. It's a metal can with no interior. And then it takes, it can go from 30 to 60 million, depending on how the interior is done. And it takes a year and a half to do that.
So it's customized?
So, yeah. Fully. And that's the only one. The regular corporate jets, they usually come from the factory completely done.
And when someone does 110 million, what does that person usually do for a living?
Well, that one was a Middle East
makes sense.
Royal family.
Yeah.
So they used it they carried a lot of people, and it was the head of state.
Yeah.
I mean, those Boeings and Airbuses, there's only about 250 of those in the world in a corporate configuration. And half of those are by heads of state owned. So really only about 120, 30 that are in corporate hands. Most corporate jets, contrary to the image of the industry, most of the corporate jets are the size of being inside a minivan.
Wow. Yeah. What about the quickest deal you've ever done? Have you ever had someone just call and just ready to go wire, like everything was smooth and stars?
I had one deal from the first phone call to a closing was 6 days.
What was that story?
Guy called me from Australia, believe it or not, and he saw we were advertising this airplane, and he called, and it was actually the principal, and I found out who he was and figured it out. I'm like, okay, this is serious, and I knew the owner of the plane, who he was selling it for, pretty well, and the owner was actually in Monte Carlo, in Monaco, and
of course,
and the principal was in Australia. I said, listen, they have a deal. They're supposed to know if they want it or not by Tuesday next week. This was on a Tuesday or Wednesday, I can't remember. And I said, but if you really want this airplane, you got to make a decision really in the next 48 hours. And I don't want to push you, but we'll see. The other guy might do the deal. So literally, the guy got on the plane from Australia, flew to London. He flew into Heathrow. He took a car to the private airport, Farnborough, and the principal from Monaco sent his plane up from there to London to show it to the guy. And we agreed on the deal. He said, okay. He said, let me go meet with the owner. We got on the plane. We flew down to Nice and took a helicopter to go meet the guy on his mega yacht.
By the way, when this is happening, are you ever tripping yourself that you get to do this for a living?
All the time.
Yeah, you're a kid in Candyland.
Time.
Compared to most people who wake up on a Monday and they got to do this, got to do that, you're here in Monaco or the south of France, brokering one billionaire to another.
90% of the time I am in my office on the phone, calling, screaming, getting screamed at. There is the bad side.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
But the other side of it, it is an amazing. I pinch myself all the time. Sometimes at the end of the day, I look at my phone to see some of the people I've spoken with, and you're a little kid from New Jersey, man. I mean, where did this come from? It's always, I can't keep humble all the time because, everybody I do business with is so impressive and they're successful and wealthy and powerful. So they really, it keeps me grounded. And anyway, we get in the airplane, we flew the helicopter to Monaco. We get on this guy's mega boat and we're having lunch and he says, come on, let's go have a chat. And so the two principals walk away. So the guy who owns the plane comes back to me, he goes, oh, Steve, the guy was negotiating with me. He wants to cut the price. We agreed on this number. Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me? What? So I got him away. And of course, what happens, I had to go, get him back up to the price he agreed. I had to kick in a little of my money, the usual thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, we agree.
Yeah.
We get back on the helicopter, literally after lunch. We go back to Nice. We get back on the jet. We fly back to London. We go to the office. We get a contract signed. The airplane goes in. It checks the engines just for what they call a borescope. It's like an X-ray of the engines. And the airplane had to go in 6 months for a big major inspection. So he knew that. And that's why we were able to do a deal without what they call a pre-purchase inspection. So that normally would take 3 weeks or so. But we said, listen, we're giving you a better price because you're going to have to do this inspection in 6 months. It's probably going to cost you $1 million or something to do it. But this is get them. Mm-hmm. But you can fly it now until that happens. And literally, we negotiated the deal. We got the engine done. And in 5 days, the guy paid, got in the airplane, and took it back to Australia. It was crazy quick.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was $22 million.
Wow. What did he do for a living?
He owns, I hate to say it because Australia, but
we could keep it.
He was in sports and in agriculture, I should say.
Yeah, that makes sense. And at this stage, just to give the audience context, how much in wires have you seen transact over the last 40 years of your career?
I mean, I've done, I don't count anymore, but I probably, rough guess, I've probably done $6 to $7 billion worth of sales since I started.
Wow.
Hey guys, we'll get right back to this video in a sec, but first, I have a quick question for you. Given that the e-commerce industry is growing by the trillions year over year, have you ever dreamed of owning your own e-commerce business like many of the guests we've had on the show, but maybe you feel stuck on how to start? Well, if so, you're not alone. The truth is, starting and setting up your own online store can be incredibly time-consuming, complicated, and get expensive. Not to mention the hassle of researching top products and staying on top of market trends that make you money. Lucky for you, that's where today's sponsor, StoreBuild.ai, comes in. With StoreBuild.ai, you instantly get a free custom-built, AI-driven store loaded with 20 winning products and a custom theme that can help you generate sales. All you need to do is head to StoreBuild.ai, enter your info, then simply sign up to Shopify for free, choose your store's look and feel, and voila! They'll send you your custom-built store ready to generate sales. The whole process is lightning fast. Whether you're just starting out or want to grow, StoreBuild.ai makes launching an online store easier than ever. So why wait? Visit StoreBuild.ai and in less than 5 minutes, you could have the e-commerce business you've always dreamed of. Thanks to StoreBuild.ai for sponsoring this video. And now let's get back to the show.
Yeah. And what about deals like crazy stories? Like, are there any particularly ones that stick out? I know you share some on your social, but maybe for people who haven't heard, because you've had some crazy stories, right? Like we were talking about the last. Like, what was the 24 hours you had that you were saying the other day that you like flew on a plane, had dinner with Steve Wynn, and then did a podcast with Tony Robbins for breakfast? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate that I have a lot of friends in those circles.
Yeah,
so I sometimes it's business, sometimes it's more just for personal relationships, mm-hmm. And so I get to see and meet and spend time with a lot of who's who in a lot of different industries. And so when I'm traveling, even though I came here to go to a conference here for a few days, and after this, I'm going off to have a coffee with somebody that I'm working on trying to sell them an airplane. Mm-hmm. So any place I go, I'm in Tokyo, in Mexico City, in Delhi, I will make sure I have 3 or 4 meetings. I won't go just for one. I'll always get 3 or 4 other meetings of people who I want to get to.
Great opportunity, yeah.
And they appreciate, when you come into town, they appreciate meeting you and seeing you, especially now with social media.
Yeah,
it's easier for me to get in to see them.
What do you notice about some of the most successful? Because you've literally gotten to sit toe to toe and do business with some of the most successful people on the planet. What do you notice is like some of the most common denominators about these, mega successful, whether billionaires or otherwise? Because I'm sure you notice common denominators after all these years. Like, what are the things that you see that a lot of these guys have in common? Some of the most successful people in the world.
I mean, they finish what they start. Okay, and this is probably the biggest problem with most people. People today have ADD. I mean, people don't have focus and they change their mind 50 times a day. But if you really, and especially for young people who come out of university, you really have to, build a name for yourself, a reputation that you complete what you start. And these entrepreneurs, these CEOs, when they dig their teeth in something, they just don't let go until it's done.
Ruthless. Yeah.
It's ruthless, but it's also, it's passion.
Yeah.
And, passion is such a drive that you just really don't want to give up, but you have to really, step over dead bodies, man. I mean, you really got to keep going and going and going. And one thing that for sure I've learned in my business, when a deal falls apart and you think it's dead, not necessarily dead. You go back a different way, and you go, if you have to be humble and apologize, or you have to just try a different angle, or you wait until the tempers, calm down or something.
Mm-hmm.
It really is rare that a deal is just dead.
Mm-hmm.
It might happen 4 or 5 times later, it might die, but you just never, ever give up. And you just have to know that. And people understand and they feel that you're passionate, you're driven, you want to get it done. And most of these people you're talking about, they just don't stop. And they're used to getting what they want.
True. Yeah.
So
what's it like negotiating with billionaires?
You really have to.
Because you're negotiating with some of the top negotiators in the world when you sell them a jet.
You really have to put yourself in their shoes. Literally ask as many questions as you can about them, and they usually like talking about themselves and what they've accomplished, and use that to your benefit. If you can really get into their head, their business, into their family life, what is important to them? Because you're not trying to outsmart them. You're trying to figure out really what are your sensitive spots? Really, what are you trying to accomplish? Because maybe what you're trying to accomplish is easy to do, and what I'm arguing over, or what my client wants, is not important to you.
Right.
So the first thing is really figure out what their goal is, what their objective is, what's their sensitive issues, and from there, you figure out how you reset the mold
mm-hmm.
to be something that they want. Mm-hmm. And price wise, that's always something different. But if you really understand that they want what you're trying to sell, or if you're representing a buyer, we will always under promise, over deliver. Mm-hmm. If the guy says, I'm not paying a penny over 20, I'm going to figure out how I can get it for 19. If a guy said, I'm not selling it for a penny less than 20, I'm going to figure out how I can sell it for 21.
Right.
So really, under promise, over deliver. If you're representing any of these kind of people, they love that stuff, man. I mean, mm-hmm. and that's really what you should do. Taking it one step further, what we were just talking about, these people who, I'm talking about us, talking to these kind of people, you have to build your own personal brand. And people always think of a brand as, Louis Vuitton, Ferrari, Coca-Cola, whatever, Google. But you have a brand. You personally, you have a brand. Your spouse is a brand. Your friends, your kids. When you think of any of the people you associate with, you immediately put them into a silo. Mm-hmm. They look like this. They get this much money. They're active. They finish what they say. These full of shit. These guys. These,
right,
I can count on him. I can't. So they have created their own personal brand. When young kids are coming out of school, the day you finish university, you got to erase your past. Okay, you don't go hang out with the people who are the best partiers. Don't who's going to drink the most, who's going to do the drugs, who's going to go to the best luxury place and holiday, and who can be with the most boys or girls or whatever. You need to create your personal brand that day, because you're really going to move into a new city, be with new friends, work with new people. Who you create your image of yourself is so important for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And that's what's really people don't pay attention to. Mm-hmm. And energy does not lie. So when you talk to somebody, I could lie to you all I want. You're going to know I'm lying. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you really deal with people enough, you're going to know that I'm not telling you the truth. You can feel it. Mm-hmm. Energy, I'm not a cosmic kind of guy, but, when a dog walks up to you, the dog's either going to bark at you or he's going to feel that good energy. He's going to come and you're going to pet him. They sense this energy. It's crazy kind of thing. When you meet somebody all right, before they even say boo. You just you get an idea. Do I like this person? I don't like this person, no matter what they say. And it's this sincerity, this personality, this reputation that you have created from your own. And by the way, this whole thing is free. Who you create, who you are, is free. You could fake it for a little while, but at the end of the day, you can't fake it for a long time. And that is one of the most important things. And when you're dealing with any of these successful people, they have to feel that you are sincere, that you're trying to help them, that you're not trying to, just like hit them over the head and run, with a deal. And they understand that. They feel it. It's like a body language. There's also telephone language. They hear it, they feel it, and you just have to be that kind of a personality.
And you built relationships with some of the most like successful people in the world who have that. So you have like a reputation that you've had to hold for not just years, but decades. I can imagine the amount of like just attention to detail that sort of trains you to pay attention to. But let me ask you this. When you rub elbows with some of these high level people, for example, like a Tony Robbins, right? What was it like selling a plane to Tony Robbins? How did that go down?
Well, the first time I went to one of his events and, I got all revved up. I figured, what am I doing here? But I actually got into it and I understand they take you out of your comfort zone and you do crazy stuff that, you just wouldn't ever think you would do. But that's what you need to do. You need to get out of your mold.
Pattern interrupt. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he came to my office and, he's a sponge for information. This guy wants to know everything and he takes it in. He really honest. And I love that kind of a person to deal with. They really listen and ask questions.
How old was he the first time?
Yeah, this was I don't know, 10 years ago. And he wanted to buy a smaller jet. And I didn't say I upsold him, but I told him this is what you really need, not that. Yeah. And he understood after it was all done. He thanked me. That's what he needed. And then the second time around, it was sort of a different situation. I just said, listen, you're doing a lot more flying now. You're a big guy. You're carrying a lot of, equipment, a lot of people. You're going further distances. You need to get a bigger plane. And he's like, yeah, maybe I'll do someday. And I'm like, yeah, but Tony, come on, you make a decision, man. You always tell anybody, just desire is not a decision. Make a decision.
Yeah, decisions shape your destiny.
And he made the decision. And people are afraid to make decisions. And I'm going to say push them, but what's holding you back? Yeah. And when people understand that, okay, let me make a decision. Let's get on with it. Getting older, and he was at the time. The second airplane must have been 60, and sort of like me when I built the showroom, my first showroom, which was 12, 13 years ago. I'm now in my late 60s, man. I'm like an old man. I was like 50 years old, 55 years old, and I'm like, this was 2009, right after the financial crisis, which was insane. First, I want to build a showroom to sell jets, which was retarded. Second thing, I want to do it like right after the financial crisis, which everybody said airplanes are dead. You never buy. But what the hell, man? I'm 55 years old. What am I waiting for? So like people say, I'm going to start out my diet on Monday. Start it now. What are you going to wait till Monday? I'm going to stop smoking. Stop. Yeah. Why do you wait? Get on with it. And that's just sort of my motto in my own personal life. Just do it.
And so you met him, so you went to one of his events, and then you sort of learned that, like a lot of his personal development tactics, and then kind of used it on him to encourage him to go for more.
Yeah, actually, a lot of the things he taught were inherent in what I did day to day. But the thing about make a decision, desire is not a decision. He was waffling a little bit. He wanted to do something. I'm not sure, and I'm like, oh, come on, man. You just was saying yesterday, desire is not a decision. Make a decision. And he said, you're right. And he realized it. And so I learned that point from him. But in fact, it's sort of, I use it a lot now.
What plane was that, if we're allowed to say or ask?
The Boeing.
Oh, that was the Boeing. Yeah. And ballpark, what do those go for?
I don't know if he wants to tell.
Gotcha. Yeah. Makes sense. But like, when it comes to deals like that, though, I know I asked you off camera, but I'm curious, is like, what percentage of the deals are like straight wires versus like financed? Because Like, I have no idea how that world works, but I can imagine people who buy jets don't need financing.
Well, you'd be surprised. You know, I have a lot of people always say, "Oh, I can never afford a jet." I was like, neither can a lot of people buy them.
Are there really a lot of people that like are over leveraging like a big chunk of what they have?
You know, people do
In the show?
Yeah, for ego or something. They shouldn't get one, and not a lot, but there are those.
Of course, you won't tell them that though, right?
No. and the smaller jets actually are more the people who get financing, and the bigger jets they pay cash.
Yeah.
And I mean, people today, they say, "Oh, you know, I got a cash buyer." Well, that's good. I mean, I'm not taking, you know, pork bellies, you know, trade. I mean, everybody's a cash buyer. Even if you get financing, you're paying in cash. You know, I mean, wire transfer is not cash. So most of the people, they do pay. They have the money, they pay, and then maybe they'll get it financed after they buy it. So because sometimes depends on the interest rate. So back a couple of years ago, interest was at 2%. Now, for sure, most people can make more on their money than 2%. So what they would do is say, you know, I'm financing just because I can take this money for 2%, and with my money, I can make 5 or 10 or 15%. Well, it makes more sense. I'm using my money to make money. I'll borrow this money to buy the airplane because it's only 2%. Now, interest rates are about 7 or 8% on airplanes. So then it's a different decision. You know, if I make 10% of my money, I get if it costs 8. I don't know. So maybe I don't want to finance, or maybe, you know, it's a different analysis today.
What about the biggest misconception most people have about people who buy jets?
Well, the biggest misconception is that 70% of the people flying on corporate jets are middle management, 20% are the C-suite, and really less than 10% are personal kind of flying. And the perception is that it's just a bunch of people with golf clubs and skis and girls and champagne, and it is so not the case. And people who have jets, they work really 20 hours a day. They never have it, you know, even if they're on holiday, they're not really on holiday. And the other misconception is that most airplanes are the size of a minivan, you know, with small, not even tiny bathrooms. You don't want to really use it unless you really have to. I'd say that's probably 65% of all the jets are like the size of a minivan or smaller. And the bigger jets are a much smaller piece of those.
Who are some of the people you've gotten to meet because of your business or what you've gotten to do that maybe the world would be like, holy shit? That you're comfortable sharing, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's most people don't like to sort of be told. But I've done this with a number of musicians.
Yeah.
Not so many celebrities, but musicians.
Like, I'm sure there's rock star stories too.
Yeah, there are. But a lot of these people, you got to understand, most celebrities are used to people paying for stuff for them. So whether it's the studios or they send their airplanes to take people X, Y, Z, or if they're going to go show up or appear somewhere, they'll provide the planes for them. So there's the smaller group of people like the Tom Cruise or Barbara Streisand or, you know, or Schwarzenegger. These kind of guys, they love flying, or John Travolta, always known to be flying around jets.
Doesn't John Travolta have like
he flies himself?
Yeah, he flies himself, and he has like a hangar or landing
at the house with the airplanes parked in the back.
That's insane. Have you ever gotten to meet him?
Yeah, I've met him a couple of times, but I'm not friends with him, but I've met him a couple of times.
Yeah.
But most of the time, celebrities are used to flying. They're renting airplanes or they're being provided the airplanes. So most of the time, we're doing business with the corporations. That's really 90% of the time.
What about President Trump? Have you ever met him along the journey?
Yeah, I've met him a lot of times. Back 30 years ago, I worked for another person in the corporate acquisitions and takeover business for about 15 years. And he was good friends with Trump. And so we used to fly with him sometimes, or I'd negotiate with him on one transaction. And that was when he first bought Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach. And so it's going back now. It was 1987 to be exact, I think it was. So it was a long time ago.
What was Trump like?
He definitely got what he wanted. And you know, when he told you stuff, whether you believe it or not, he believed it. Yeah. And he believed it so much in his mind that, you know, he would just do anything to get it, to do it, to make it happen.
He was a shrewd negotiator?
Yeah, he's a shrewd negotiator. And so, you know, sometimes like most people, you know, you might, ask for $1 million, but you're really looking for 100,000. So when he, says, I'm going to put tariffs on, Mexico, what he really wants is to have the Mexican troops at the border to stop people from coming in.
Yeah.
So, it's sometimes what you negotiate for, and not just him in general, maybe it's not what you really want, but that you got to throw a big bomb to get somebody really worried. And then you pull back and you say, okay, I'll take this, but that's really maybe what you wanted to do at the beginning. So listen, he is a tough negotiator, for sure.
Yeah.
That's why he's where he's at, right?
Yeah. What about behind the scenes? What was he like, business aside? Like, what was Trump like?
Actually, super nice guy. This is going back 30 years ago. And I understand from some mutual friends now who are very close to him that since the election, actually before the inauguration, I should say, since the time I think he had his ear shot off almost, he's become a changed person in
Really?
the last 4 months or so, 5 months.
Wow.
And he's more calmer. And a lot of people don't see that or believe it, but he's definitely become a little bit, he thinks things out a little bit more, and maybe we don't see it that way because a lot of the media makes things sensational and they always focus on the negative all the time. But I think, he really is a patriot. I mean, the guy really is doing stuff for America. He that's what he believes, that's what he wants to do. And whether there's a financial interest, I don't know. Listen, the guy's been a capitalist his whole life. And whether you say he succeeded or he didn't and everything, he's the president of the United States. And
for the second time. Yeah.
And for the second time, and nobody would have imagined in the last 4 years that he would overcome those obstacles that he did.
Yeah, most presidents or most people who are up for election and don't win will never run again.
Exactly.
This guy didn't care. At the mountaintop, screamed he will win. There was collusion. And he's back in action.
So, you could say what you want about him, but the guy, he has a target. He goes after it and he doesn't let go. So, and you don't have to agree with everything. So there's nobody you're going to agree everything with. Will you agree more, than you disagree with? And I think, he's doing stuff for the right reason of trying to change America to back to be as strong as it used to be.
I'm curious, in your perspective, you've gone to sit down toe to toe, do business with a lot of these guys. How have you evolved the most as a person? Because I'm sure you've had, in a certain context, a ticket to history. You met people who built countries, nations, industries, and you've got a back seat to just kind of hang out and do deals with them and, and hear the stories. I'm sure you've heard stories that the world will never hear. But how have you changed, the most or evolved the most throughout your career, getting to learn from so many people?
I've become much calmer and I don't get as upset or excited or angry with people when they are negotiating with me and getting really tough and mean with me. Dealing with so many different cultures around the world, you really, it's hard to explain to anybody, but everybody outside the United States does not necessarily think the way we do in the United States.
Right.
And, people in Afghanistan or in China or in Nigeria or in Russia, they don't think the same way we do. And when you're negotiating with them and you think that they are being tough or lying to you or manipulating you, this is just, they think the same thing about us because that's not the way they do business. And, when you take over Iraq and you want to, change everybody in Iraq to, the way America does business, you can't change people in 2 minutes. It takes generations to get its mindset of people's upbringing.
Culture, yeah. So
I've learned, it's a long way of saying it, but when I deal with some of these different cultures, you get so furious, like, this guy has no common sense. How can you do something like this? You're lying. This is not true. But you just got to, okay, let me figure this out. All right. What does he really understand? What can I do to make it come back around the other way? How can I explain it to my side that this is what they're trying to accomplish? So it's made me really more understandable of what they're trying to accomplish, who they are, what they think is right or wrong. And it's changed me in my relationship. I mean, I got divorced before. I used to argue every day, I don't know, multiple times with my ex-wife. My current relationship in 15 years, we have never, ever had a fight. Never had a fight. We don't argue about nothing. It's amazing.
Where'd you meet her?
I met her in London 16 years ago. And I just, just nothing worth arguing. And that gets down to ego.
Mm-hmm.
All of this has to do with ego. Ego and greed are the two worst traits of humans.
Yeah, ego is not your amigo.
It is. Exactly. It is really a terrible thing.
What did you learn from that first relationship that in the second relationship you felt you did better? Or is like a better thing to like take note of for people out there? Because, the divorce rates, a lot of our audience is entrepreneurs. Divorce rates are the highest among entrepreneurs, especially successful entrepreneurs. Yeah. So, from your experience, because I'm sure you've also seen a lot of nasty divorces.
Yes.
From clientele and high level and people getting hundreds of millions and all sorts of crazy stuff. But what have you seen both secondhand and firsthand in relationships that works versus doesn't with successful entrepreneurs?
I have definitely, the one major thing is, and most people should listen to these words as much as they can. I focus on what I have, not what I don't have or what other people seem to have, and be jealous of them. I look at what I have, and I am happy with what I have. I am, like I said before, everybody I do business with is a billion times bigger, more successful and richer and powerful than me. But I guarantee you, I am in the 1 percentile of the most happiest of all of them. And I do what I want. I buy what I want. I go where I want. I have an amazing woman. We never argue. And it's just, I focus on what I have. If I'm with somebody else, you can go to dinner with another couple and you come back and your spouse, your partner says, "Oh my God, I can't believe he does this for her. How come you don't do that for me?" And in the meantime, they walk away from the table and they get in the car and like, "I can't believe you said this. Why did you do this with it?" And what you see face to face is not really what happens behind the curtains. Mm-hmm. You can never really know what goes on behind the scenes there. And so if you focus on yourself, and it's the same thing in business. These people, I'm not trying to be them. I want to be successful. I want to learn from them. I want to build who I am up more, but I'm never jealous, ever jealous of anything anybody else has. If anything, it gives me more drive, to really work harder to get something else or be somebody else. But I don't ever think of it as jealousy. And I think it's sort of if you see, a guy with a Ferrari sitting on the street, the two different attitudes you can have. A young kid could look at it and say, "Wow, that's an amazing car. What does he do? I mean, I'm going to work harder. I want to get a car like that." Versus another guy who comes from someplace else and he goes, "Why would somebody have that car? It's disgusting. Why should he have that car? And I got to take the bus, or I got to take a cheap car. This is disgusting." And they walk up to the car with a key and they scrape it. I mean, those are two different mindsets. Mm-hmm. And again, mindset, talking about passion again, mindset. If you have the right mindset, you're positive thinking, not angry at everything, and you want to just advance yourself, not jealous of what other people have or do, they'll make you a happy person.
Yeah, no matter the challenges.
Yeah, no matter what the challenge.
I'm sure you've also seen it too. I'd love to delve into kind of behind the scenes, because I can imagine you, correct me if I'm wrong, but I could imagine you behind the scenes on a lot of these jets, hearing stories from these guys about battles they've conquered, or like one time we had to do this, and you're just like, holy shit, like, just getting to be a passenger on it. I just saw an article recently where Jamie Dimon from Chase was talking about how one time they were like in a cash crunch with something or whatever, and they needed to put together like billions of dollars in 72 hours, or a company was going to go belly up that they were involved with or doing a merger with. And he was like, most people could never withstand that pressure. They see you as the CEO of Morgan Chase and they're like, why are you making X amount of money? Or, people have all these criticisms of what you make, whatever. But then when you're solving huge problems like that on short timelines, most people could never do it. They can't, most people struggle to pay their mortgage and that stresses them out. They can't imagine, stuff at that scale. So I'm curious for you, like, what have you seen behind the scenes on like how a lot of these guys handle big challenges, big conflicts? Because a big thing is like that separates people is their ability to handle pressure. What are your thoughts on that?
Listen, you look at any quarterback in a football team, okay? Look at what happened in the Super Bowl that just went by.
Crazy, yeah.
I mean, think about at the beginning of this game, who's ahead, who's behind. These guys say, "Man, I'm picturing that ring on my finger, man. We're going to party tonight. And then an hour later, like you're in tears, you're crying. Why? Because one guy got comfortable with where he was, and the other guy said, shit, I got to pull all stops out, man. If I don't do something right now, I'm dead. And this is the exact same thing like Jamie Dimon you're talking about, it's JP Morgan. These kind of people, they're under fire, under pressure, under tight time. They perform, man. They come out really, really, I'm going to kill. I want to do whatever I can. It's a mindset. Again, it's mindset. You can't be afraid of trying anything, and do something. Don't sit back and just let fear overcome you. And these people, they get into this flow sort of a position like any sports person or an actor. When the lights come on and cameras turn on, boom,
Action.
They just come to this character. And I think just some people have that ability to do that.
What about in terms of like their ability to perform? Like you talk about, for example, you've been behind the scenes with a lot of, some of the big names you mentioned, is like, what do you find is their driving force for them? I mean, at a certain point, it's money, but beyond that, at that level, it's really sport, right? Like a lot of these guys aren't doing it to pay bills at a certain point, right? It's like, what do you find drives some of the most successful people in the world at elite levels?
Winning. It's winning. I mean, really, you're right. There's a certain point, money, it's not going to change your life. These people, I mean, they have so much money. I mean, why would Elon Musk at the time, okay, 400 billion, now obviously it's a lot less today, but this guy, he doesn't, I'm going to go work probably for free in the department, of government efficienly.
Doge.
Doge to cut costs. I mean, what is he needs another job. I mean, the guy is running, 6 multi-gazillion-dollar businesses.
Right.
And this guy is he doesn't need the money, but he's obviously far superior IQ than most people, but he's doing it because that's the way his brain is wired. He wants to solve a problem, for different, for that's going to affect, hundreds of millions of people. And that's just his, I think it's what Peter Diamandis calls a massive transformative purpose, an MTP. It's what your definition of what you stand for, what you're trying to accomplish in your life. And once you become successful at something, and you don't have to worry about making money next week to pay your bills, what else can I do? Even myself now, I mean, I'm not wealthy by any stretch of imagination by these people I do business with, but something now in social media that I've found out in the last year is that all these young people that are watching what I put out there and what I say are inspired by what I'm doing and what I'm saying and things, and I am getting so much more satisfaction. I didn't even know I had that bone in my body, but when kids come up to me, young people come up to me and say, thank you so much. I really have learned so much from you. It makes me feel so good. I'm not making money by it. I really feel, and people call it giving back. I don't know what's giving back, but I can't believe I'm in a position to be able to help so many people by what I say. And that's clicked in me late in my life, but it's clicked. And all these people you're talking about, there is something in them that it drives them to do these things. And it is definitely not because of the money.
What keeps you in the business after all these years for you personally?
The adrenaline of meeting these kind of people and negotiating with them and learning from them constantly, not about, business, about what their company and sectors that they work in. I'm always asking, trying to expand my knowledge base. If you're not learning, you're going backwards. And it's just to keep myself, I'm 68 years old now, man. I've just said for sure, I am not, going to die mentally or physically until they literally put me inside that box. I want to learn. I want to stay active. I want to stay youthful. I want to be healthy. Yeah. And, and I just want to keep going. And by being with these kind of people, they push you, they drive you, you learn from them. Yeah. And that's the adrenaline that I get.
Yeah. Grant Cardone. I don't know if you're familiar with Cardone.
Yeah, sure.
He has this cool line. He says, die in expansion, not contraction.
Exactly.
And most people contract, and that the contraction is what causes the death. And expansion is actually the form of life, right? A flower, bloom, or the,
100%. And listen, today, everything is moving so fast. If you are not constantly moving forward, moving ahead, you are moving backwards. There's no such thing as standing still anymore. If you're not pushing yourself forward, advancing your business, your career, your whatever you want to do in your life, you're moving backwards in life.
You can't be neutral on a moving train.
You can't be neutral now anymore. You can't. It's just not possible. And just the world's changing too quick, and you have to be on top. You have to learn. I'm going to this, Peter Diamandis, this Abundance 360 thing. It's the who's who. The people from AI, from robotics, from virtual reality, from crypto, from longevity, from everything that's moving so quickly in the world. And a lot of vocabulary I can't even understand, but I'm trying. I'm trying. I'm trying my best. And because I just don't want to be left behind.
Do you ever pinch yourself thinking how a kid from the Bronx ended up in these rooms with these elites?
All the time. All the time. Because I consider myself humble. And because I don't find myself, jealous of anybody. Like I said before, I don't think arrogance is, because arrogance and ego are really terrible, terrible traits. But you can be humble and confident. Those are two good traits that sort of go together. And it's just people who, if I started believing that and already acted sometimes like some of the people that I do business with, I'm finished. I mean, I just because my attitude would change, and because that's not me. I mean, I'm servicing that world. Yeah, sure, I can fly on private jets and I get on boats and I, go anywhere I want. Fine. But, I keep that mentally in my head because it keeps me driving forward.
Yeah. What are some of the most, I have to ask, what are some of the craziest stories? I know you shared a few of them, like your first deal, but maybe could you share maybe 2 or 3 wild stories of deals that were just like Wild Wild West, or maybe shit you haven't shared before, or just things that stand out? Because I know you've done some insane deals over the years.
One long time ago is back in the old days when you used to be able to have a little bit of cash. I remember this one guy wanted to buy or lease an airplane. And he came, picked me up. I was in Washington, D.C. He picked me up in his twin engine airplane he was flying. And we went to go see the plane. And we left and he says, listen, I decided I want to get it. And I said, yeah, but, I don't know how you're going to clear your legal, your KYC, your client, your financial position, because, what you told me you do, I don't know if it's going to be, acceptable to them. Well, what he told me he did is he told me he was in the lobster cargo business going from the islands to Miami. Okay, a little suspicious,
Sure.
And I said, so, you like the plane? I don't know if they're going to, it's paying every month for a year. He said, no, I solved that problem. I'll just pay him up front. Are you going to pay him up front? Yeah. And he's flying the airplane. I'm in the co-pilot seat. He reaches behind my seat and he takes a briefcase and he picks it up and he puts it in my lap. I said, what's this? He says, open it. I open it up and it's piles of cash just stacked in there. I'm like, what do you want me to do? You want me to count it? I'm like, what are you, crazy? Yeah. And he said, well, I said, yeah, come on, they're not going to take this cash. I mean, that's like drug money. You're talking about raising alarm bells. I mean, it's bad enough you're doing, lobsters from the Bahamas, I mean, come on, my friend. I mean, this is not going to smell too good. You got to at least send the money from Citibank, make it look like it's legitimate. And anyway, long story short, we finally got him. We did the deal. He wired the money from the bank.
Yeah.
4 months later, the airplane was found in the jungle of Brazil. Crashed.
No way.
Wow. Anyway,
crazy.
So that was in this going back now. 30, 40 years ago. And there was, one where, the guy, many times people offer me jobs, when I'm flying with him, and one was trying to get me to sell his jukeboxes. And I'm like, I'm sitting here trying to sell you a jet, man. You want me to sell these jukeboxes?
Yeah.
And ended up many years later, I did go work for this person and in a high level executive position, but it wasn't to that company.
Yeah.
And I mean, I used to follow people. This one person, I wanted to do a deal with him. And he said, he looked at it was a helicopter. And he said, okay, I'll do the deal. I said, listen, I really need to get this done tonight. And we were in Newark Airport, and he was going back to New York on a helicopter. And I said, let me go with your lawyer. He had his lawyer with him. Let me go with your lawyer and finish the contract up and do what you want, but I don't think you're going to get done tonight. So I went back with him to New York. We went to the lawyer's office. We're negotiating the contract. And it was like about 7 o'clock at night, and we still weren't done. And so I called the principal up. I said, listen, how long are you going to be in the office? He goes, I'm leaving here in a little while. I said, oh, where are you going? He says, where am I? I don't know, where am I going? I said, where are you going to dinner? He said, no, I'm going shopping. I got to get some things. Where are you going shopping? What do you mean? Where am I going? Where are you getting? He goes, I'm going to Barney's. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll meet you at Barney's in an hour. He said, what are you talking about? So I tell the lawyer, listen, let's take the back page of this contract, make 7 copies because you need all these different copies of everything. Let's go and see him, get his signature on this thing. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, let's do it. Come on. So we get in the taxi. We go to Barney's. I find him in the store. He buys a tie. I buy a tie. He buys a shirt. I buy a shirt. I'm not letting this guy go.
Right.
We get done out of the store. We go into his car. I said, you have to sign these papers. Give them to your lawyer. He'll hold them.
Yeah.
But once we finish the contract, I have everything. So he literally signed it. We got back. He left. I went in the taxi with the lawyer. We went back to his office. We stayed until midnight, finished negotiating the contract. We attached the signature pages. I went home, had the deal done.
Wow.
So
that's wild.
This is
yeah.
And I've had some times where
That's crazy.
Early days again, where when you're selling one of these people's airplanes, there's either 2 reasons they're selling their jet. One, because the guy's not doing so well and he needs to get rid of the plane, or 2, they're moving up to a bigger plane. But if it's the first one where they're getting rid of the jet, and where now I'm in the plane taking it to show it to the customer, the pilots don't really like me, right? Because if I'm successful in my job, these guys are out of a job.
Yeah, because most that's part of it too, right? Is like when someone buys a jet, part of it is they're hiring full-time pilots, 1 or 2 pilots, just to be on standby year round, right?
Yeah, you hire a full-time but when you're buying somebody's plane, usually it's in a different part of the world. You're not hiring those pilots, so those pilots are going to get fired. So, I mean, back in the early days, I'm sitting in the back of a jet, and I'm sitting there relaxing. We're going to show this customer, and one of the guys turns around. He says to me, hey, Steve, have you ever done a roll in one of these planes? I'm like, what? And he takes the plane, and he just flips it upside down. It's on a jet.
Yeah.
He flips the thing completely upside down and comes back around.
Holy
and I had a drink, and he did it so perfect. And it didn't even spill. And I was like, oh, God, what are you guys doing? I was like, he's not, calm down. He goes, do you ever see how fast one of these planes can go down to 9,000 feet? We were at like 40,000 feet. I said, yeah, I know. And he pulls the power back. And I thought my heart was going to drop. I thought I was going to die. I mean, but these guys were all torturing me because I'm going to get rid of the job.
Yeah.
So, I've flown on a lot of planes that were not really, in the old days, airworthy. They didn't take care of them the way they were supposed to. You can't do that nowadays. They're everything is much more legitimate today.
What are the associated costs with owning a jet? I'm sure it ranges, but you talked about the pilots, but between fuel costs, insurance, like just high level, just for audience who are listening, what do jet costs average?
So jets are split up into different categories. There's small, which is like a 4-seater. There's a mid-size, which is like a 6-seater. There's a super mid, which is maybe even 7 or 8. There's a large cabin, which maybe holds 10, but in a sort of bigger, fatter, wider. And then there's ultra long range. And then there's a VIP airliner, like a Boeing or Airbus. If you're in this small jet, it's about $1 million a year. If you're in the sort of the middle in the large cabin, you're about $2 million a year.
This is just for maintenance, operating?
This is for everything.
Pilots,
everything except for depreciation and cost of money if you borrowed money. But salaries, fuel, maintenance, landing fee, hotel for the pilots, catering, insurance, subscriptions, everything. And then you go to the ultra long range airplane, it's $3 million a year. And then for like a Boeing Airbus, it's $4 million a year. Basically, that's the cost. And that's to fly about 400 hours a year. And to give you an idea what 400 hours a year is, on the airlines, when you get 100,000 miles, you're in a platinum level. That's like everybody's goal, 100,000 miles.
Right.
100,000 miles is about 200 hours a year. Mm-hmm. So these jets, most of the corporate jets are flying on average about 400 hours a year. So whether it's the principals flying it or they're flying it and they're renting it out to third parties when they're not using it to reduce their cost because it's the airplane sitting around doing it.
So that plane that's like 110 million that you sold, what are the costs?
So it's like $4 million a year.
And maintenance and all that.
Everything, yeah.
Wow.
And the small ones are about $1 million a year.
Is there a common denominator with industries you see a lot of the wealthiest folks in? I'm sure you've seen it all over, but are there certain industries more common than not?
Well, things have changed so much in the last 20 years. I mean,
you got crypto millionaires now.
Technology, crypto, these things didn't exist 20, 30 years ago.
Have you had young kids try to buy with crypto, or have you seen a lot of younger kids buy stuff?
I mean, I haven't done a deal yet with somebody paying from crypto, but we've dealt with some people who have made their money from crypto. And
these are people who, like, had it not been for crypto, there's no way they would have.
Oh, for sure. But they're sitting with a lot of money and I'm not, so bravo to them.
So we'll take it. Yeah.
You would think these guys that are redneck from the countryside, or it was could have been a 10-year-old kid who was getting allowance, and they were saving up money, and they had $100, when they were 10 years old. And this is 20 years ago when crypto started, when Bitcoin started. In 2015, it was $250, right? So if you think about it, if somebody had $5,000, okay, they were saving up from birthdays or something, and they're 10 or 12 or 13 years old. And if they would have had $5,000 in their bank account and they invested in Bitcoin, $5,000 when it's $200 is 25 Bitcoins, okay, which is $2.5 million today. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, but some of these kids did it when Bitcoin was pennies, when it was a dollar. And all of a sudden, if they had 1,000 Bitcoins, and it cost 1,000 with a dollar was 1,000 Bitcoin. Today, 1,000 Bitcoins is
like 100
billion.
Billion? Yeah.
No, it's 100,000
times
1,000 is a billion.
Yeah. Wow.
A million, but it's a million.
Yeah. That's insane. And most of these guys own the jets for a long period of time, or do most people sell it every couple of years to upgrade, kind of thing?
The average, it used to be 4 or 5 years. Now it's more like 6 to 8 years they keep them.
Mm. And for you, like when you see the industry, where do you see it going with aviation in terms of changes, shifts, demand?
There's a thing called the eVTOLs. Okay, so a helicopter is a VTOL, a VTOL, which is a vertical takeoff landing. And now they're coming out with the eVTOL. So it's an electric vertical takeoff and landing. Basically, it's a passenger carrying drone, or as most people call them, flying cars. It sounds a little science fiction. Mm-hmm. It's not. And they are flying now. There's hundreds of them.
Cars that can fly?
Yeah. But they don't look like cars.
Yeah.
But they're electric or hybrid. And they're a distributed propulsion system. So you can have like 6 or 7 rotors, propellers, and it's done by electric. So there's no engine noise. There's a drone noise, but not an engine noise. They're carbon zero. And if one goes, doesn't matter. You have 5, 6, 7 others that are separate power plants, so it's safer. And there's hundreds of them being in research and development right now, but there's probably in the next year, there's probably 2 or 3 that are going to get certified, and in the next 3 or 4 years, there'll be 30 of them maybe. And
wow.
And it will become. It's not to take one from your backyard here and go to Los Angeles Airport. That's going to take a while to do, and quite frankly, it's better that way. So the real places that they're going to get taken up first are places that really don't have much infrastructure. So let's say in Africa or the Middle East, or let's say someplace like Indonesia or Malaysia, where they have 30,000 islands, and you want to get in and out and all these kind of things, and you get a power plant that could charge from solar or something from an electrical grid. You don't need to get fuel there. So if you can envision, today the internet, Wi-Fi, it all comes from satellites. No matter where you are, you can get in Wi-Fi.
They got Starlink with Elon Musk.
Exactly. So, but not many years ago, man, if you didn't have a fiber optic cable coming in ground and coming to your house, you were not get connected.
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of thing. And so these eVTOLs, these flying cars, are going to become a much bigger part of corporate aviation and taxis. And eventually, literally, you're going to get on your phone like an Uber. It's going to come. It's going to come pick you up. The first ones will have pilots, but they don't need to. And they'll become automated, and that's the biggest change that you'll see.
How long do you see yourself in the jet business?
Till I go in my coffin. I'm
the wheels fall off.
Yeah. I'm looking now. To build another showroom in New York.
And really, what brought you to England or London initially was a woman. You said your lady.
Yeah, I was going to open up in New York. I just got divorced, and I was going to do this concept I had in New York. And I met this girl in London, and I was going back every 4 weeks and every 3 weeks, every 2 weeks, and then I reversed engineered in my head. Well, it makes more sense to do it in London than in New York, and I convinced myself that was what should I do, but it was really because of a woman. And you're young, but most of the things you will do in your life, major things that you will do in your life, is going to be because of a woman.
Yeah, good and bad.
I guarantee you, most of you, this is the truth.
Yeah, right and wrong. Yeah, that makes sense. And so plans are, because I know you have a beautiful state-of-the-art custom display. Would love to see it. If I'm ever in London, I'll hit you up. But I know you're building one in New York. That custom state-of-the-art board, what is it, or what's the vision for it? To basically show potential clientele so they can look, feel, and get a sense of what that aviation experience would be like?
So the whole idea behind it was when I left before I went to go work in the corporate takeover business, 80% of the jets used to be in the United States, 19% were in Europe, and 1% were miscellaneous places around the world. I left the industry for about 17 years to be in this corporate takeovers and fast food restaurants and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, that's where you went to work with Nelson Peltz, Wendy's, mergers and acquisitions.
So we were doing corporate takeovers. I was there for 15 years, and then I was with my ex-father-in-law. We had a number of fast food chains.
What made you go back?
I just missed aviation. It's something I knew I loved, and I just wanted to go back and do it. Mm-hmm. But when I came back, the whole demographic spread of these customers were no longer where they are. So instead of 80% of the clients being in the U.S., and I used to like meeting the clients. So even if we did this thing on a Zoom, this is not the same.
Correct.
Doing on a Zoom. Forget about doing it on the telephone. But but face to face, you can't get the person's body
energy, connection.
And if I see you face to face for the rest of my life, you call me, I'm going to take your call. Oh yeah, I remember. And on the telephone, you're nobody. You're just another call.
Right.
And even a Zoom, it's not the same. So I always really made it a point. If I really had a real client, I wanted to get on a plane and fly to see them. When I wanted to get back in the industry, there was now Russia and China, Nigeria, India, all these places which before didn't have food on the supermarket shelves, let alone people buying jets. So the world changed, and these frontier markets started evolving all around the world, and they were the ones who were buying planes. And now that was like 30% of the market now.
Wow.
So I'm like, wow, this is incredible, but I can't just get on a plane and go to India or China. It was financially, crazy, and even logistically, you're going to go see somebody and they cancel on you, or, I'm going to do all this. It takes me 3-4 days for an hour meeting. So I said, listen, I got to find a way to get them and come and see me. And so after drinking enough vodka one day, I'm like, I'm going to build a showroom. I'm going to get them to come and see me.
Yeah.
And so I came up with this idea. I was drawing, sketching, and I got some guys in to help me design stuff. And, how do I get something that doesn't look like I'm selling model airplanes or I'm a travel agency? Okay. And so I had to really come up with this idea. And I asked so many people, what do you think about this idea? And most people said, go check yourself into a psychiatric hospital. You fucking lost it, buddy.
Yeah.
And which is another thing I've learned. Don't ask anybody's opinion about you doing something, because you're going to ask them their opinion about something they know nothing about. And all they're going to do is say no.
And most people ask for reassurance. Like, you know what you want to do, and you're looking for support.
Exactly.
And they're just going to like shut it down or play it safe. Yeah.
And most people don't want you to succeed anyway. They're going to tell you don't do it because they want to make themselves feel better and raise themselves up. That whole nother story.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Good advice.
So I decided I'm going to open this thing up. I was going to do it in New York. And then I figured, well, London, this international market is better placed there, and it was really because of the girl. And
but it's funny how women will convince us, right? But like, no, it's a business decision.
But it worked out. You know what? It was the right reason, and so I could thank her, and I always thank her for making me make that decision. And
do you ever have clientele walk in, like just see it off the street in London, and then it ends up being a customer?
Absolutely. You can't imagine who has walked in that door. I can't mention names, but I mean, it's amazing who comes in there. People, I could say one because he's not with us anymore. God bless his soul. He's a super nice guy. Jimmy Buffett. Okay.
No way.
Jimmy he is such a nice guy. God bless him. He was such a beautiful soul.
Yeah.
And so I've sold him a few planes. He flew his own plane.
He literally just walked in.
No. I was just going to tell you that he flew his own airplanes, and he was a love of aviation.
Yeah.
And so he was in New York, and I was trying to talk to him about some other airplane, and he was going to Paris to go do a show. And he said, Steve, listen, I want to see your showroom. I want to come in there, So literally, I came in, I went with him. I met him in the Hamptons. He shows up with his shorts, flip-flops, and a surfboard. And we're fine. We go to London just to come into the showroom. And he came in for an hour, did what he did, and then he left and go to Paris. But I've had this Mexican billionaire, okay, walked in off the street, and I'm sitting there talking to him, and he said, yeah, I'm thinking about buying this $50 million plane, everything like that. And after doing him the presentation on our video wall to show him what we do, he said, yeah, I want you to represent me to buy a plane. So he signed the document right there, and then he signed the document for me to represent him. And okay, maybe he's true, maybe he's not.
You didn't know who he was prior?
Oh, well, I had my guys immediately. My guys are like CIA. Okay.
This guy owns this. He does
you'll find anybody, what they do, who they're with. I mean, they're great. Okay. So anyway, the guy left, signed a paper, and we sent him some stuff over the next month or two and stuff, and he wouldn't respond. He responded, and he didn't get excited about it. And then one day, I sent him something. That's the one I want. Boom. Did a deal, sold him a plane, $50 million, and he gave me his airplane for $20 million. We sold that one for him. No, I'm sorry. We didn't sell that one for him. It was an issue with something with one of the engines, something. But that guy, and I could tell you a lot of stories like that somebody just walked in off the street, and probably 25% of all the people who come into my showroom come in off the street, unannounced, no appointment.
Wow.
And to tell you, so I was at one showroom where we had to move because they knocked the building down to build a new Peninsula Hotel. And then, so I've been in the present showroom now for seven years. So we got locked down in COVID 5 years ago. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly to this date, it was 5 years ago.
Oh, that's true. That's right.
2 years before that, we moved into that showroom. So just to give you an idea of the numbers, for those 2 years before COVID, we had 1,055 people come into our showroom. Out of those 1,055 people, I had 93 billionaires in there, and I had 172 millionaires worth between 50 million and a billion. We've had pilots, maintenance directors, government officials, obviously corporate executives, competitors, management companies, and added all those numbers, 25% of all those people walked in off the street. Now, I'm not saying they're all customers, okay? By far, they're not all the customers. But some of the people came in out of curiosity because they saw the airplane in the window and they wondered, what is going on here? But they were in airplanes. They did have one, or they worked for somebody who did. And 3, 4, 5, 6 years later, they're changing airplanes. They call me.
And when most guys move like that, are they quick to, like, once the deal's negotiated, quick to send the wire, quick to do that? Or is everyone kind of different? And
everybody's different, but I'd say 25% of them are like that.
They're quick.
Yeah.
Just quick, easy.
If they're really in the mood to buy, yeah, you can get them. But not only them, you got to get the other side. You need to have a willing buyer and a willing seller, and it's hard to get them both matched up. It sounds crazy, but
You're managing egos.
You imagine a lot of egos.
The biggest ego, yeah.
And before COVID, the buyers were really, really tough. COVID, after the first, dip, everything, and then everything went crazy up.
Correct.
Bikes, planes, cars, everything went
They're
crazy.
grateful for a deal. Yeah.
And if you could just, if you put an airplane for sale, 5 people want to buy it.
Yeah.
Well, if we thought buyers were difficult, whew, the sellers, man, they just said, no matter what they agreed to, tomorrow, no, price is higher. No, price is higher. Come on, we agreed. No, I got somebody who wants to buy this price. Oh, it was impossible. Thank God now, now the market peaked 2 years ago and it's come down. And today we're right where we were pre-COVID.
I love it, man. I love it. What's your favorite plane to date?
I can't say that because I'll get killed by the other guys we sell planes for. But so.
But you know what it is, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a ultra long range airplane, which I think is the best for the money, and then there's like a super mid-sized one, which I use a lot running around Europe or something like that when I rent them to fly around.
Very cool, man. And then before we wrap up, Steve, I have one last question for you, and then we play a quick little game at the end here. So my last question for you before we wrap the pod is, after 4 decades in the business, you've seen a lot, you've done a lot, you've transacted billions of dollars of sales, represented some of the most affluent people in the world, and you've also at this stage building your personal brand. Have seen a lot of influx of people asking for your advice, wisdom, etc. My question is, with all your experience, what advice do you have for men or women around the world watching this who are maybe aiming for more in their life, but maybe feel stuck? Maybe they're in a place where, they want more, they want to do big things, but for whatever reason, they just need that edge or that drive or that words of wisdom. Being on this side of the fence, living your dream and being around people who've lived theirs, what advice would you give to people out there trying to go for more and make their dreams a reality?
So I hate to say this, but stop looking at social media because you have to get out there. You literally, physically, you have to get out there. You should, like now, I'm here for 4 days to go to this summit, this Abundance 360 Summit. It's the who's who in all these different tech and biotech and crypto and AI and robotics and all this kind of longevity. I want to be around people that are bringing me up. I want to be around people I want to learn from. I want people that get motivated. And, they always have that saying, I think it was Jim Rohn, I think it was Tony Robbins' first mentor. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And if you're the smartest person in the room, get in a different room. You want to be around people who bring you up. And these kind of people you're talking about, you need to get out there. Go to conferences in that sector that you're interested to do something in. Talk to people, meet them, learn, and just get your interior, exterior. Go and meet people, talk to them, network. It's so important. Today, everybody's on their phones and they're on their computers. And even the people in my office, I got to constantly make the phone call. Make the phone call. Stop sending emails. I get 2,000 emails every day. I'm delete. I can't go through them. You have to get out there, get in front of this, this kind of thing. It's so important.
And it's the unfair advantage. It gives you a unique advantage to learn, get insight, build relationships, and who knows down the road how deals happen, et cetera. Opportunities created.
But when you get out there, shit happens. Okay. Every time there's an aviation conference, I'm like, I don't really want to go to another one of these things. I've been going for so many years. It's a pain in the neck to go there. I got to spend and I got to go. Every time I go, I am so happy I go. And something comes out of it. Always something will come out of it. I'm sitting at home, I'm sitting in my office. Nothing earth-shattering is going to happen. You got to get out there, man. Knock on doors, meet people, network.
Yeah, nothing happens if nothing happens.
Exactly.
100%. All right. And then before we wrap up, we play a quick game. It's called First Things First. So the way the game works is essentially, it's like a word relation game. So I'll rifle off a quick word or phrase, and then you just tell me the first word or phrase that comes to mind. Make sense?
Okay. Not to be politically correct?
Not at all.
Okay.
In fact, we insist you don't. The only rule is that you can't repeat yourself twice.
Okay.
Ready? Okay. So first word, aviation.
Fun.
Money.
Make more.
Advice this Steve would give to the younger Steve back in the Bronx.
Just go for it as soon as you can.
The biggest limiting belief you had to overcome to get to where you're at today.
The worst that can happen is somebody says no.
What makes a great negotiator?
Experience.
What it felt like the biggest deal you ever closed?
A Boeing. $110 million.
Fear.
It's the worst trait. Greed, ego, fear. The worst traits of a human being.
Best business advice you've ever been given?
Never take no for an answer.
Worst business advice you've ever been given?
Never meet halfway.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. Building a personal brand on social media for the business.
Well, it's not one word, but it's so important. In the old days, you had to do it, like I said before, your personal brand is so important, but just make sure it's authentic. Make sure the brand you are promoting is really you, because people see through it, and once they see through it, they're not going to pay attention to you.
Passion.
Work.
The common denominator of the most successful people in the world.
The ability to win.
And last but not least, when Steve Varsano is nothing but dead gone in a pile of dust, what do you hope your life's work was all about?
Well, it's changed over the years, but really in the last couple of years, I hope that I've inspired a lot of the younger generation to learn about an industry that they never thought or dreamed that they can get involved in.
Very cool, my man. And then any final words of wisdom you have to people out there looking to achieve their dreams and maybe one day do business with you and buy a jet?
Just make sure your future should be full of memories, not dreams.
I love that. I love that. Very cool. And where can people find you, Steve, if they want to learn more, connect with you, or buy a jet from you?
Well, you can go to jetbusiness.com. You can go to any of the social media on The Jet Business, or you can go onto a website, thejetbusiness.com, and find our phone number at the office.
Perfect. That's a wrap. Thank you so much, bro. Appreciate your time, Steve.
Really,
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you so much.